Padres just keep on rolling. Unfortunately, it appears like they will have to do that without Jackson Merrill, at least for a little while longer. Joining you on a Thursday off day ahead of their trip to Houston. It's the On Fire podcast. No Derek today, but rest assured, we got one of our favorites, John Conniff of MadFriars, friend of the show, who we always enjoy having on to discuss primarily what's going on the farm. Good time to do it as we are in the early stages of the minor league seasons. Let us kind of give us a landscape of what's going on out there, and of course catch up on some of the big names. Also want to pick his brain on Jackson Merrill. A lot has happened with Jackson Merrill, maybe some other young guys that he's spent some time around at the minor league level who are now doing some impressive things now in the bigs. And of course, the Padres 15-4. They are just rolling along after another impressive performance on Wednesday to get the series against Chicago. So much to discuss, most of it good, and excited to catch up with John as always. Thanks to OG's, a sponsor of the On Friar podcast. If you need a place to catch Padres games, we got NBA playoffs that are just getting rolling. Maybe golf on the weekends, whatever your sport of choice. Hit up OG's, one of their many locations around San Diego County. Enjoy their menu, constantly changing up their menu. Lots of specials, an awesome beer list, and just a good hang. So thanks to OGs. Appreciate all they do. And make sure to hit up one of your friendly neighborhood OGs around San Diego County. Without further ado, the walk-up music. It is the On Fire podcast. I am Darnay Tripp, pleased to be with you on a Thursday afternoon, and always thrilled to have one of our favorites back with us. It is John Conniff of MadFriars, gotten a button-up shirt and everything, dressed for the occasion, joining us from his basement in DC, fresh off a long day at work, and kind enough to include us on his early season media tour. Oh, is that the cat's with us? I think this is the cat's first appearance.
Yeah, she's coming in. She wants to enter a moment of fame. And I had to wear a button-up shirt to look better than. Well, there's a reason they don't put David J's face on the radio. So he'll be on John and Jim. You can catch him later on, and we'll see how that goes.
John and Jim say hi. What's up, fellas? Good to see you guys as always. John and Jim, they were mad at me because I was on with Fletch this afternoon. So I think they're between your little comment and me hanging out with a different ST Sports 760 show. I don't think we're in their good graces today, but that's all right. That's all right. We'll get them back another time.
Definitely.
Hey, you got any bets on the line this year before we get into like the nitty gritty? I feel like this comes up at some point. Our mutual friend Eric, I saw he liked the tweet, so he might be chiming in at some point. But this is always one of the fun things because it also like it leads us into the conversation as well. Last year was all about Jackson Merrill. Will he make the opening day roster? You didn't think he would.
Yes.
You footed the bill for a hefty meal. What's it look like this year?
Well, one, if I eat with Danny and Eric, it's always going to be a hefty meal. So, two, the one I lost the year before was I didn't think the Padres would sign, Xander to such a long-term contract, and they told me I was wrong on that. And I lost the other one on the CJ Abrams was ready. This year I won, and it was about if Ethan Salas would make the big league roster. And so what we're going to do when I come out to San Diego, we're going to get some Ethiopian food, which I think will be really good for Eric and Danny because, you eat Ethiopian food with your hands, so they'll be comfortable. They won't have to think too much with the silverware.
Very nice. Well, congratulations to you.
Yeah.
That's a rare feat. I don't know. I feel like that they should have known. Like maybe they're just kind of throwing you a bone with that one. Like, did any of us think that Salas is going to make the opening day roster?
Well, I think Eric's line was, why don't we let the old man win one while he's still with us? So
There
I
you go.
think that was I think that was kind of sufficient. So
Well,
we'll see. They're looking forward to trying it, and we'll see how the table manners go for two guys from the East County. So we'll check on that.
we'll enjoy eating on their dime. Shout out
Yes.
5.5 Pod. And I want to obviously get into kind of the lay of the land with the
Hmm.
farm.
Okay.
Uh, but I want to start with the big league club.
Okay.
And it has been an eventful start, particularly for Jackson Merrill, with just the way he started the season. I mean, best offensive player on the roster out of the gates, then rewarded with that very team-friendly extension. Unfortunately, he's got the hammy that has flared up and has caused him to miss time, and now that will extend beyond the 10-day IL window. We'll see there. But what has it been like seeing the success, the main, like the primary success story of the Padres farm system in
Yes.
recent history continue to flourish and kind of take a step? Because I was dumb enough to think, okay, is he going to be able to keep this up now in year two? Baseball is a hard sport. We see, established big leaguers have some fluctuation from one year to the next. It is obviously early, but aside from the injuries, as good and exciting as a start as you could have hoped for from the young guy.
Yeah, I mean, one other thing I would always include Fernando Tatis as a guy that was,
True.
developed by the Padres. I mean, you can point out he was signed by the White Sox, but he was traded to San Diego when he was 17. He never played any game in his life professionally other than for the Padres. As far as Merrill, there were two things that kind of stood out. Was one, when Merrill was drafted by the Padres, he took an underslot deal to sign with him. He signed for 1.8 million. The slot value on that was 2.3. And a big reason was kind of what he said in the press conference was the Padres were the first guys, who really scout him. I think he told the great story of he put up on Instagram a picture of him with the Padres, and they go, take that down, right now, because they thought they were going to be able to get Merrill in the second round, from what I understood. Then a couple of teams were really coming around and they were worried. So they took him in the first and they made a gamble. James Wood would be available in the second, which happened. They were lucky on that. As far as his hamstring, I remember he got hurt his first full season in Lake Elsinore. Remember, he broke his wrist on his glove hand. And then when he was rehabbing, he ended up having really tweaked his hamstring, and he was out for 3 more weeks on that. And he was the one saying that he thought actually tweaking the hamstring was worse. So hamstring injuries, I mean, have really been going around with the Padres. They've had a couple of guys, prospects. Tears just came back at Lake Elsinore. They got another one, Kai Roberts, is waiting to go to Fort Wayne. And I think they got a pretty involved process about what you have to do and accomplish before they're going to take you off. And because they're always really worried about that thing, the second time it happens, when you already have it, it could be much worse. So a guy like Jackson Merrill, I mean, how I did know him when he was in the minors, I can imagine it's not very happy waiting. I mean, part of me even thinks he was mad the Padres wouldn't let him play in the Dominican League in the winter. I mean, the guy just really loves playing baseball, but I've known his agents for a while, and I'm really happy for Jackson. He's a great kid, and I love how people are kind of going, well, you left money on the table, and you're thinking 200 million before you turn 30 years old is not bad. I can live off that. That would be fine.
Yeah, no question about it. And, I guess on the upside, it is assurance for him in the
Mhm.
event of an injury. In the event, I mean, I don't think Jackson Merrill's the type of guy that's going to want to take the money just so, in case I struggle, I'm financially secure. Like Jackson, as confident as he is the type that only expects himself to kind of reach one level after another and continue kind of the ascent that he's on. But, certainly through the pre-arb and arbitration years, that could benefit him as well. But there's no doubt. I mean, that's the Padres had to feel great getting him at the number that they have for
Oh
the
yeah.
length that they have. And, he could have very easily at 27, 28, made good money through those, 3 arbitration seasons, then, sought out a huge number. Now, instead of kind of taking the Trout path where he gets, or even really Manny Machado, like 2 really big contracts, He's got the one coming up at 30, and is precisely what the Padres need. And good on Jackson being a team first guy that is happy to make less here, but in an environment where he's comfortable and feels supported.
I think I'm correct on this. Is when he signed, I remember his agent said that part that he was really excited is I think he bought a condominium in the Peoria area, and so he was ecstatic that he could go train year round to play baseball compared to being in Maryland. And I think from everything I've seen, he's just he really likes playing baseball. That's just, I know it sounds like really simplistic to say that, but I can't think of anybody else I've met who, he was a good student in high school. He said the greatest thing about turning pro was all he gets to do is think about is playing baseball, how to get better at playing baseball, how to wake up, train, do this. This is a guy who, when he broke, his wrist in Lake Elsinore, went back to the ACL and worked on his lateral movement to get quicker as a shortstop. If that had been me at 20 years old, especially when I'm hitting 325 with power, would have been really easy to go down the pity party. Oh, why'd this happen? I was doing this and this. And he just went out and tried to figure out a way to get better, and he did. And he came back with the Storm and helped him win the Cal League championship. So hopefully, things go that way this year for him.
Yeah, and like you said, he's going to make plenty of money. There's going to be endorsements on top of that. I don't know exactly how his parents do, but it seems like they're probably doing okay. Like, I don't think they own mansions anywhere. Like, I don't think they have a vacation home in Bermuda or anything like that. But like, he's not necessarily having to like support his family. Everybody comes from
still teaching in Severna Park.
They're both working.
Yeah. He's a very normal person to talk to. And I think a big reason why he is that way is because he was never someone who is in all these showcases at like about 11 or 12 years old. A lot of things with Jackson happen, very late. He was, up until I know going into his junior year, he was going to go to West Point. And then after that, he got, Kentucky came and offered him a scholarship. And then a lot of the things with the draft picks just came up, out of nowhere. I think I've said here a couple of times, Chris Kemp was watching him and he liked him a lot, but he didn't know how to really evaluate him because the guy in Mound was throwing like 70 miles an hour. And, so it was a really good move by the Padres. And, you're around them enough. They talk a lot about their scouting system. They kind of brag about it, but we're going to go down on a couple picks and they can kind of back it up.
Yeah. What do you think about this James Wood fella? 6 homers, 920 OPS. He seems to be the real deal.
Yeah. Gosh, I wish we could have Derek on here now, who is just like you had to kind of get a leash on him when Juan Soto was, I'll trade the whole farm. I don't care. Get Juan Soto, and I'll let Derek get back at me next time I see him on this. But the thing that just kills me and just eats at me is I've known a couple guys who, with the Padres, who said the original deal was Mackenzie Gore, Robert Hassel, and Abrams. And that was it, because Rizzo had seen James Wood play, and he was fine with that. And you kind of wonder what they could have done, but you got to judge a decision in the time that it was made. And I don't blame the Padres one bit for doing it. San Diego's never won a World Series. Yeah. A good line might be, as people enjoy telling me how old I am, is when the Padres were in the World Series in 1984, I can remember they won one game, and some guy who was about my age then said, don't worry. You're going to grow up. The Padres aren't going to be like the ones we grew up with the 70s. They're going to win multiple World Series in your time. Now, I just turned 60. All right. So it's been a while since they won the last game. That was when I was 19. All right. So it's been a good long time, and I'd like to see them win a World Series before I leave the earth. That would be nice. I think that's the one thing that really does drive AJ Preller. The few times I've interviewed him, he's always said that, the goal is to win a championship. It's not to have a competitive team. It's not to have a chance. It's to win. And, I think everyone is a little bit surprised at just how well the big team is, and right now we're looking at I think there's some good options that are gonna sit well for San Diego going into the season for potential depth pieces too.
Yeah, a great segue because that's where I was going next. We've had seasons, I think, last year and probably the last couple years at least. You know, it's been pretty dry from a position player standpoint. You know, we had
Mhm.
2022 and CJ Abrams debuted last year. Obviously, Merrill and Graham Pauley, but in terms of kind of like the back and forth between El Paso and potentially San Antonio down the line, particularly from a position player standpoint, there wasn't a whole lot of like intrigue there. And you have this really competitive battle for bench spots.
Mhm.
And you have Connor Joes and Tyler Wades and Oscar Gonzalez, maybe further down the line to Tirso, Luis Campusano, who end up on the wrong end of that battle. But at some point, most, if not all of these guys are going to get an opportunity. And there's other guys that we'll talk about that could have an impact on the club as well. More exciting for you guys when, from especially a position player standpoint, you've got guys that very easily could have started with the big league team. Some of them are still maybe in the minor league portion of their career. Some are established big leaguers that just didn't make the cut but want to stick around. When you have kind of that mix and there's going to be some life and some movement and some guys that people are going to be interested about, does that make it any more interesting, different for you guys in a season like this?
It's always more fun when you get a guy they drafted that's a top prospect coming up and doing really well. Like Merrill and Tatis were that way, and Abrams to an extent. I mean, the guys, when we talked to Mike Daly, the assistant player development director, at spring training this year, he said, the El Paso team is essentially kind of a big taxi squad. It's for guys coming
Mhm.
up like a Tyler Wade who are, going to be there to fill in for a couple games, and you're not worried about how much playing time they get. They know their role on the bench and how to stay ready, and people like that. I mean, a guy you and I were chatting about before I came on is Luis Campusano, who's probably just destroying AAA right now in his first 65 at bats. I think he has 5 home runs in his first 15 games and 10 extra base hits. And he might be either an option or maybe a more valuable trade piece. As far as who's like kind of a prospect in terms of a position player, someone they want to see play, maybe that might be a little later when we talk about either Romeo Sanabria or Romeo Sanabria. I think I brought up that how to pronounce his name once, and he said, it was the 18th round draft pick. As long as someone's talking good things about me, I'm happy. He's a really good guy. But yeah, the AAA team has a lot of talent. I mean, particularly, I think that's one thing. It's on the mound. I think there's about 3 guys that could be, legitimate starters that could have a shot at helping San Diego this year too.
Yeah, you mentioned Campy,
Mhm.
and as we talk here on Thursday, a 3-hit day with 2 homers and a walk.
Yeah.
So far hitting 407 with slugging almost 800, a 13 plus OPS. Let's see. Up to 5 homers, 12 RBIs, 10 walks, 10 strikeouts. He's playing like a guy that has something to prove. I think there's a few different questions.
Right.
One being, okay, what is enough for them to say, "Hey, Yuli Gurriel, it's been real." So that's one question. Another question is, um, has he run his course, and are they just kind of playing it out at the minor league level? And at some point, we'll find out about a trade for a different depth piece or a young guy that includes Luis Campusano. Those seem to be kind of the two things at play. I personally would love to see them give Campy another opportunity, but it happens to be in a year where Elias Diaz and Martin Maldonado have probably overperformed offensively in terms of what our expectations were of those guys, while not hurting the team defensively, certainly. And so it's, I think, going into the season, when you heard Maldonado was coming up, you're thinking, okay, at some point they're going to need a little more offensive juice. It hasn't been so glaring that they absolutely have needed a Luis Campusano, and so maybe the pathway isn't as clear as we thought it would be. But with the DH, and as we discussed beforehand, how many days do you want Campy behind the plate? What is the appropriate balance where maybe it's more than you're comfortable with, um, you know, compared to what he's given you at the plate. And so that's kind of the interesting dynamic. If you feel like, okay, I've seen enough from Yuli Gurriel, Campy's going to give us a little bit more upside there. They've carried 3 catchers before. Maybe that's the direction that they take. It's interesting, kind of the possibilities that play. One, taking you 2 different directions. Long term, I don't know what long term Campy with the Padres looks like. Short term could be an option at DH. But there is always, I think, the lingering thought that people have that maybe, enough has been enough.
Well, I think you bring up a lot of good points. I don't know if I have all the answers to any of them. But
That's why we bring you on here, John. I need you to let us know what's happening with Campy in 2025.
I can just make up a bunch of stuff, but let's see. I think the
best works for
one,
plenty of people.
Yes. Well, one, he's only 26. He's still relatively young. I think from what we talked to Daly and the Padres, they want to see him develop as a catcher and as a hitter. Mike made a really big point about they see him as a two-way threat. And potentially defensively, he has all the tools. I mean, strong, has a good arm, really blocks well. And so I think if they saw him just as a hitter, I think he'd already be up. I think they see some value in continuing to develop him as a catcher. He's working with Pete Zamora, who's the manager at El Paso, who he has a really strong relationship with. He was a Campy's manager when he was in the Arizona Complex League at 18. He works well with him. So probably there's a lot of reports going back and forth between Pete and the Padres about how he's managing a game, how he's doing the pitchers meetings, how he's identifying things. People like you and I can look at the numbers and offensive stats. That's fine. But I think if they just saw him as an offensive threat, not really any more of a catcher, he'd be up here replacing Gurriel right now. But that's my guess. That's not based on any real reporting or anything like that yet.
Yeah. Well, your guess is certainly as good as mine. Also today, we shouldn't overlook, Tirso and Ellis, 4 of 5 today. Right. Average up to 295, OPS 788. Yeah. 1 homer so far. That was kind of his calling card last year. The power that I think was so alluring to so many people and made him an interesting case this spring. What was your read on Tirso? Maybe even going back to the spring, when he really emerged early on, faded. I think by the time spring training was winding down, probably figured he wouldn't be the guy, but is very much in the rotation when you consider when there are needs beyond the needs that are already there. You've had Merrill and Lockridge. We've seen Tyler Wade and Connor Joe. At some point, Oscar Gonzalez as well, who I'm excited about too. What's your read on Tirso, how things played out during the spring and what things look like for him at this current juncture?
Well, Tirso's a huge man. He's about 6'4", 245, and, like both of us, he's around 3% body fat. So he's the big thing on Tirso, which made a lot of your other colleagues in the media laugh. I had a good line was, in San Antonio, they would refer to him as Mexican Hosmer because he would put so many balls on the ground. So Tirso is very well aware he needs to get the ball in there, and he's trying. So my guess is, especially he's more of a corner outfielder, he's played some center, that I think the Padres are going to want to see a little more power come from him. He's also very young. Tirso is only about 25, despite being in the system since 2016. They'll let him play first some more. He's the type of guy they want to see, I think, really play every day and do things coming up. A guy like Connor Joe or even Oscar Gonzalez, they're fine putting them up as platoon players, help out, be on the bench. I believe, they don't really want to do that for Tirso. When Tirso comes up, they want to see him having, kind of an everyday thing. If Jason Hayward was no longer on the Padres and Tirso had, kind of put up the numbers Luis Campusano did right now, I think Tirso might be replacing Hayward. He might be a guy you'd run out there every day. But yeah, great guy, really works hard, has really tried to alter his swing and do different things. I don't think another year in El Paso is gonna really hurt him.
Yeah, and I think am I wrong in that strikeouts have maybe been a bit of an issue, and he only had 6 of them. That seemed to be an area of growth during the spring.
He's always had a
And
really good eye at the plate. I mean, he's had a really good strike zone discipline. It's weird. He's the only guy in his family. No, he's the only guy in his family that hits left-handed. He's a left-right guy. That's because his mother was a left-handed, and his mother had him bat that way. So he credits his mom for swinging from the lefty side. But he's definitely he's probably the most of all the position players. He and Eggy Rosario are probably the guys who you'd see as like a prospect in the traditional sense of how we're using that word.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it seemed like, again, like once spring rolled around, it probably was going to be his spot. But there's a lot of excitement about Tirso. I mean, given the proximity, being from Tijuana, the time that he spent in the system. I mean, it will be such a great story when that comes.
Oh, yeah.
It just happens to be a year where they sign Hayward and Connor Joe, and they bring in an Oscar Gonzalez. They love Tyler Wade. Tyler Wade earned it on Wednesday. There's just more bodies there. If we're looking at, maybe the last couple of years where there isn't the same type of depth and you're seeing kind of different guys come up to try and establish that, maybe there's a better chance for him early on the season. But, the situation is such that they're kind of forcing him to be patient.
Hang on, Darnay, 1 minute. I got an anxious Chihuahua. Just
no.
Yes.
Okay. Not to be confused with an El Paso Chihuahua.
Yes, he's like 15
This is how much
old.
This is how much you love the Padres AAA affiliate. Is you had to go and get your own Chihuahua.
Yeah, I had him. He's
very quiet.
Sweet dog. Yeah, he's 15. So he was on the chair next to me, and he was kind of getting anxious. So he wants to come on and get his moment of fame on the MadFriars podcast.
What's his name?
Don Alfonso.
Don Alfonso. What's up, buddy?
Hey, there you go, Don Alfonso. So this will be definitely something I'm sure David will make fun of me on, but I don't care. I couldn't stand Don Alfonso get anxious.
All right, let's then run down, beginning with El Paso. Who should we really have an eye on in terms of, you talk about it being kind of a taxi squad of sorts. Who else is in that mix?
Well, a guy who's more of a traditional prospect on the mound is Ryan Bernhardt. He's a guy you've heard Derek and I talk about all the time because of the induced vertical break. And as much, as someone who moved here before Ruben Niebla, they had Darren Balsley. And Darren Balsley had the same reputation as Ruben as a Padres pitching coach. He could fix anything. And Darren was very good pitching coach. I think I played basketball against him when he was at Mount Carmel. And Ruben could really help Ryan a lot by getting his arm angle right, because when it's too high, he doesn't have the command. When it's just right, he gets that rising vertical fastball in the strike zone. Last year at San Antonio, he got a little too low and it flattened out and he got hit. But this year he's been really good. They have to kind of get him under control with which of his secondary pitches he's going to use, how much, and the usage. So those are the things, like, I think going into the pitching lab, working with a major league pitching coach, saying, hey, this is the secondary you should emphasize more than the other ones. He's someone who I would look at by about June. That could be someone to look at. I said Stephen Kolek, he had a tough outing in Albuquerque, but then again, I mean, you and I are threats in Albuquerque at that park. That makes El Paso's park look like Candlestick. All right.
No,
so,
right.
I mean, yeah, the PCL has a lot of really interesting parks at altitude. And the thing that, Pete Zamora, who's the manager at El Paso, when I was interviewing him last year, he said, it's not so much the thin air, which is tough. And that's not good for any pitcher. It's like, you don't get the same break that you will on, a sinker or a slider. And a lot of the balls just stay flat. So that's why a lot of pitchers really get hit hard in that league. And it's really tough to evaluate pitching. It's the opposite in San Antonio, because the winds, the parks outside of the city, the wind's coming across. And, if you're a right-handed hitter and you want to decide you're going to pull the ball into there, it's like, yeah, good luck. I mean, yeah, it is really difficult.
It looks like Bergert, 4 or 5 starts and just had one kind of stinker that has
Pretty
thrown
much.
his numbers a little bit. Kolek's had a couple rough outings
Yeah.
thus far. They getting Eggy more run out there in the outfield?
Yeah, they're letting Eggy run around all over. I mean, Pete was putting him at shortstop a lot last year. I think his best position is probably second base. He's probably the biggest. You've seen him up close too. He's probably about the biggest small person you've ever seen in your life. He's about 5'9", and he has a legitimate 205 to 210. And he looks like a free safety from somewhere. I mean, he's a really funny guy. He has a great sense of humor. But yeah, Eggy is, I think, 1 home run away from beating Cody Decker for the all-time home run title in El Paso. Probably a title he really didn't want to get. But yeah, and they're letting him actually play center field for the first time this year. I like Eggy a lot. I'm not sure I see him as a center fielder, though. I mean, I could see him in left more than that.
Yeah. 11 strikeouts thus far, 5 hits, 3 walks.
Yeah.
And his next homer will be his first of the season. So waiting for Eggy to really kind of get it going. Trying to think, I had somebody. We got Mason McCoy there. There was somebody. We just saw Bryce Johnson come back in that Brett Sullivan deal.
Correct.
Omar Cruz, Trenton Brooks. Tell me about Trenton Brooks.
He's a guy from San Diego. He came out of the San Francisco Giants organization. He's 29. He's left-handed, mainly plays first base. He used to play the corner outfield positions, not so much anymore. He's off to a really hot start. Again, it's always better to do well right now, but, we try not to place too much emphasis on what someone's doing the first month. So, I mean, you kind of got to balance it. Like if someone's doing poor, you say it's early. Someone's doing great. Oh, that's predictive because I like that. So he's probably going to be a little bit down on the depth chart about when they would add him on. They'd probably stick to the guys they have on the 40-man roster so they wouldn't have to make a corresponding move.
Yeah. We saw Omar Cruz. What should our expectations, what's the outlook look like for him?
He's a guy who relies mainly on a really good changeup. He can mix in, can spot a fastball. He's someone that can probably go multiple innings, lefty. He's had a lot of success. He was one who went over, which is kind of neat, in the original trade for Joe Musgrove. Came back to the Padres as a Rule 5 minor league free agent. Performed great last year between San Antonio and El Paso. He's not going to be someone who's really going to, light up a velocity gun, but unfortunately, he has the bad cliche of a crafty lefty who knows how to pitch. Sorry, I'm going to sit here and tell you next time the ball just sounded different off this guy's bat.
Yeah,
something like that.
You're digging deep, aren't you?
Yes.
Anybody else in El Paso before we get to San Antonio? Because I'm sure there's somebody in San Antonio we'll all want to hear about.
Yeah, Francis Pena just came back. He's kind of a lanky Dominican right-hander. He's about 6'3", 175 for about 3 trips through a buffet line. I mean, he has a really good sinker. He's looking for another pitch to pair with it. Sean Reynolds will probably have a run down there.
Yeah.
He's 6'8". He is a legitimate 6'8". He's talk to Sean. He's a big man.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be the big key with Sean is he had a lot of success because he was able to throw a slider for strikes, and he threw it to get people to chase, and he'll be the first one to tell you that. Yeah, another really good guy, fun to talk to. One of our writers, Ben Davey, always teases me that I always say everyone's a good guy. And I said, well, I deal with a lot of trade lawyers during the day, so everyone looks like a spectacular human being compared to some of these guys.
All right, let's go to San Antonio.
Okay.
And let's stop wasting time and let's get to, one of the 2 guys that people are probably most curious about. What has 2025 brought us thus far for Ethan Salas?
He's going to struggle at the plate. He's under 200. He's looking really good defensively. No one had any questions whether Ethan was ready defensively for that position in San Antonio. It's just a very big jump. I mean, you talk to the Padres more than I do. You can hear all the stuff about it. He hit 206. He showed progress. He showed this. Our guys looked at this. He made some adjustments. He did this at the Arizona Fall League. 206 is 206. There's not many people that are being promoted from high A after hitting that. So do I still think he has a really good swing and can do it? Yeah, I do. I think you could see him, if you leave him there for the full year, he could actually put up some pretty good numbers. But you got to have a lot of patience, and it's a really big ask of Ethan to do it. I mean, he's still only 18. The one thing that's kind of bothered all of us is you see some people that cover the Padres, and not that much on the minors, all kind of have this assumption like, oh yeah, well in 2026, Ethan will be here, he'll be behind the plate every day, or 2027. You kind of got to wait. You can't really sit there and say, oh, he's a bust or he's going to be great. Double A is really tough place to hit, and that park especially is really difficult to hit. So best of luck to him. We'll have one of our writers will be out there, I think, in a couple of weeks, so we'll have some more content with Ethan.
Isn't that one of those cliches too? Is a prospect will let you know when he's ready?
Yeah, we can play on all sorts of little things like stop scouting the stat line. Well, how you judge value, in the major leagues is a great example of someone like Manny Machado. He plays about every day. At the end of the year, he's going to have around. You go the old school stats, about 30 home runs, run 100 RBIs, and a lot of other numbers or rate stats are going to populate from that. So Ethan essentially has had one really good month in Lake Elsinore where he hit 357 with power. He had another one toward the end of the year at Fort Wayne, but that was around 256 with like a 340 on base and still limited power. When he's going really well, he hits the ball gap to gap, takes his walks. And if he can do that, I mean, he's going to be an all-star. I mean, if he can just, get on base and offensively and, be somewhat of a threat, his defense is worth it.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
But all that to say, like, when we've been projecting 25, 26, he'll be ready. Yeah. Like, we've been 2 or 3 years out, or I guess, 2 or 3 years out. It's easy to say that at that point, say, oh, we're not going to worry about the results. We're in 2025. Next year is 2026. Mm-hmm. Like, he's going to have to show you at some point, like, we're no longer at the point where we can just be like, oh yeah, we're going to project a couple years. He's going to figure out and he'll be there. Like, he's going to have to show you that he is at that place.
Well, I always think that's the reason why people get mad. Guys like me or other people who are much more who do this full time, when they come on podcasts or radio shows and they just say, oh, I magically see something in the air like this. MadFriars, we really try to just report. This is what this guy's doing here. We talk to the player. We talk to the coaches. We'll tell you our opinions, okay? But that's all they are. I mean, anyone who thinks that they can tell you where Ethan Salas is in 2027 should be playing the stock market. You could make a lot more money, I mean,
I mean, so far you mentioned the numbers 179 with OPS in the low 5s. And he has one game where he went 3 for 5.
Correct.
And if you take that out, the numbers are not as good. And
the amount of people who texted us and said 3 for 5, here it is, guys, get ready for the ride. Yeah.
And of those 5 hits so far, all singles. Yes. So it's it's been a year and a half or so of like, okay, well, it's going to come around, and it's still very well may, but it's maybe not the nice tidy ascent that many were hoping for or expecting, given just kind of the level of potential.
Well, here's a transition for you, Darnay. Is the guy who's doing really well there is Romeo Sanabria. And
Mm-hmm.
when people start going, well, okay, well, what is the big difference? And you would see with Sanabria when he was at low A last year, he would sit there and he would wait for just an inside fastball. And it's something he could do damage with. And then on top of that, Romeo has a really good hit tool. So if you threw him something outside with 2 strikes, he had a great 2-strike approach. He could just sit as a left-hand hitter. He could just hit it over someone's head to the 5.5 hole. If you got a little higher, he could hit off the wall. And the one place you could kind of beat him a little bit because he wasn't used to seeing it was an inside fastball. When he went up to San Antonio, because he went from low A to high A to double A, you could kind of see he had to kind of change his approach, and he really changed it this year. Is that he couldn't sit and wait for his pitch as much. He had because guys at double A, they can throw both a changeup and they have some type of breaking pitch. So you see him, he attacks some of the breaking pitches early on and goes opposite way. Other times, he's more sitting for something on inside that he can drive. And a lot of it is just not only being able to do that, but having the right approach. And that's what makes the jump that Ethan's making just so difficult. It's not, just being able to see those pitches and knowing and have a plan what you're going to do about it.
Yeah. And super productive. 3 for 5, 2 for 4, 3 for 4, 4 for 5, couple offers and a 4 for 5, hitting 386.
With power.
With a 901 or 991 OPS. And he's done that like every year. This is not a year that's kind of come out of nowhere. Now in his third minor league season, career numbers 306 with an 884 OPS and 21 homers.
He is a really good. The best thing about him is, like a lot of guys that are like left right, where they bat left-handed and they throw right. He's got a really good feel and control of the strike zone. His natural, where he swings naturally, is to left center, kind of like Jackson Merrill does a little bit. In one way, and he's kind of like Merrill, and I got to be real careful about this. I'm not saying next Jackson Merrill, but the strength of his game is he's got a really good hit tool. So like when he got up to San Antonio, one of my friends, one of the announcers on the Missions, Brian Yankelson, was teasing him. He goes, "Hey, when are we going to see your first home run?" And Romeo goes, No, man. No, I'm not ready for that. I'm just up here I'm going to hit first, and then we'll see where it's at. So he's a fun guy to talk to. He's got a really good approach. He'll go into a big story. He grew up in the Miami area. His father is from Puerto Rico, but the family is originally from Cuba. He grew up with his dad, like flipping, beans, bottle caps, and things at him with a broom handle. So he gets used to the strike zone, and really good guy, converted catcher. His first year, he was injured a lot. The Padres moved him to first base. Got to stick around the Arizona Complex League for a while. Last year, he went to 3 different levels. And he's answering a lot of questions this year with his ability to hit the inside fastball. That was the big question. And so when I interview him, I want to make sure that I point out that, I think him becoming a top prospect is great. I think him having a shot to be at the major leagues is wonderful. But of the 5 guys on MadFriars, I was the one who was the highest on my individual ranking. So
let's go.
Him making me look smart, that's an accomplishment. That's something we got to keep Romeo focused on, So I'm sure he'll get a big laugh at that. He's really a good person, down-to-earth personality.
So he'll be at AAA at some point this year, and then Luis Arraez potentially gone after this season, and Romeo Sanabria is the Padres' first baseman in 2026.
See, man, you're gonna get me in trouble, darn it.
That's what you're telling us, John?
I'm going to sit there and shoot my mouth off about this, and then
that sounds like a bet. That sounds like a 2026 bet. Danny and Eric, let's get something going.
Well, the first time they see a guy in the rookie league, I think they saw Cash Mayfield strike out a bunch of guys, and Eric sent me a text going, "He's ready," because he knows that just annoys the hell out of me. So naturally, he likes to stick the needle in whenever he can. Yeah. I think just the thing about the Texas League that's a lot of fun is there's 10 teams in it, and there's 5 in Texas and 5 in, I think, Oklahoma and Arkansas and Missouri. So they each play each other one time a year, but then the rest of the time, these guys, all they do is play each other all the time. So I'm kind of being really curious what Romeo's experience, Romeo, I'm going to mess that up, but I'm kind of being curious what his experience is going to be the second time around. Because that's one reason that league is very good, because by July, these guys have played about 25 or 30 games against each other. Everybody knows each other's team, and then it becomes kind of a chess match, because when you're at AA, probably about 75% of those guys have the talent to play in the major leagues. You know, the other 25% are on their way out. And a big thing just happens to be about what your approach, how you think about the game and see it. And that's what makes it really interesting.
Yeah. Let's see. We got to get to DeVries, of course. Yes. Anybody else in San Antonio that we should be locked in on? I mean, there's a bunch of familiar names like Jagger Haynes, Jackson Wolf, Brandon Valenzuela, guys that we have certainly discussed with you or otherwise. Joshua Mears, what's Joshua Mears up to these days? I was high on Joshua Mears going back a few years ago.
Yeah, we all were. I mean, Joshua is a guy, I think from what I understand, Joshua's main struggle is just with his approach and just making contact on the pitches he's supposed to. The guy you just mentioned, Jagger Haynes, had a really good outing last night, nearly went 6 innings. A lefty, his big thing he needs to work on is getting out right-handers more with his changeup. But Jagger's very well aware of that. Victor Lizarraga, who's a local kid from San Diego, he's always a lot of fun, blast to talk to. Just what Brandon Valenzuela, his roommate, said about him, he goes, all pitchers are weird. He goes, but Victor, I love him. He's my roommate, but Victor's like especially strange. He's just different. And he's a fun guy to watch pitch because he likes making fun of himself that, he left high school early to go to Mazatlan to start his baseball career because he didn't like school, but he's probably one of the more intelligent pitchers you're going to see out there because he throws backwards. He starts guys off with sliders, sweepers, changeups, and then he finishes off with a fastball. He doesn't have as much velo on his fastball as he would probably like, but he's someone to keep an eye on at San Antonio this year as well.
Yeah. What's up with Leo DeVries? Looks like he's back in the lineup today on Thursday, but a lot of people were kind of curious what was going on with him. I think getting pulled from the lineup, then I think the manager said he was going to be back, then he wasn't back, and now he is. Anything to that?
Yeah, it just, might have been something, we weren't there. Might have been something he did or didn't do on the field. They're pretty kind of strict with the younger guys, especially at the A-ball level. I'm sure Leo's going to be okay. I wouldn't put much into his numbers in Fort Wayne where everyone freezes. I mean,
wait, John, didn't you just say, hey, 206 is 206, right? 200 is 200. I mean, you can't play both sides of the fence now.
Well, I think I am because one, I'm talking about a year. The other one, I'm talking about a month. See, Darnay, I've been around a lot of lawyers. I can make this distinction. So you can't get me. You got to come with a stronger game than that.
All right.
Leo, I think you probably will do well. One thing is at Peoria, when you see these guys leaving, they try telling him, especially the Dominican guys, like, hey, Northeastern Indiana is kind of cold. And these guys say, oh, well, I'll pack a hoodie. It's a little more than that. He put on some size. He looked pretty good. I mean, he's going to struggle because there's more of a gap than there was between low A and high A. And Leo, struggled a little bit. He was in the right spot, but it kind of took him about 3 months really to get going in Lake Elsinore last year. So, yeah, I still think he is really a top prospect. Of course, do I have to predict what year he'll be the starting shortstop on the Padres and replace Xander Bogaerts and move him over? Yeah, I think there's a few bits of data points we kind of need before we can start making those type of projections. But he has all the tools, everything you want. I mean, he's with the same manager he had last year. He had like Elsinore, so I'm pretty sure things will work out.
So either he's at short, Xander at second, Jake's back at first, or Romeo's at first, Jake's still at second, Xander, and then Leo DeVries waiting in the wings.
We got some time to figure that out.
Within like a year or two, right?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, next couple months.
Perfectly reasonable. What do you think the big league camp experience did for Leo DeVries?
Well, I mean, I think I'm looking forward to talking to him. I should be in Fort Wayne in May. from what I understand, it was very good for him because it helped him understand about how far he needs to go and how good these guys are. And then it also kind of showed him that, he has the ability to play with these guys. And the whole thing about baseball is just how consistent you can be. And that was the one thing, Mike Daly was talking about that he really hoped with Leo was, there's Alfie wants to get on the camera again. He hopes he will develop some really good routines and, just how to get the most out of your ability on a daily basis.
Yeah. Anybody else in Fort Wayne we should be particularly locked in on?
Isaiah Lowe is a pitcher they got last year, had a good run. Really good sized kid. The Padres got him in the 11th round, got him out of a commitment to Wake Forest. He was hurt his first year. Last year, he pitched really well for Lake Elsinore. He's another guy. He does a really good job of just reading batters when he's on the mound. He had really improved his sweeper, has a good fastball, has a little bit more, just a really big kid physically in this core area. So I would expect to see a little bit more velocity on his fastball develop during the year. And one guy real quick, there's two guys in San Antonio I forgot to mention out of the bullpen. Bragley Rodriguez, of course, is a really good a good pick. And gosh, the other guy I'm going to forget, I'll come back to him in a minute, was there a reliever that they converted from a starter to
was Braden Nett in San Antonio?
Braden Nett's in San Antonio. Braden is a guy our new writer, Clark Fahrenhold, likes a lot. He's very good. But the thing about Braden is he just hasn't thrown that many innings. And the question is, how consistent can he be with his secondary pitches, which would be a really big question. So I'll bite myself for forgetting this guy. So you go ahead with the next question. I'll look him up. And
closer to home for the folks here in San Diego that want to take the trip and get some coffee cake and catch a minor league baseball game as well.
It's always a good option.
What do we have to look forward to? Got Boston Bateman there, obviously.
David Morgan. It was killing me. I was having a senior moment. The reason why David Morgan is interesting was he went to college this whole time. He was a center fielder, and he threw like 7 innings, and he threw about 96 the first time he was out there. So the Padres went up and saw him in the summer league, I believe, with a team in Oregon called the Portland Pickles, and they gave him a tryout, and he's pitched really well this year. I mean, he's got a really strong kid, electric fastball, decent slider, and he's someone that you could see up here by the end of the year, just because of they might need a bullpen arm. Going back to what you just said on Lake Elsinore, it might be the biggest team I think the Padres have ever sent out there. They got Sasquatch, who's gigantic. They got Cash Mayfield. They got another guy interviewed at spring training was Caleb Fountain, who's at least a 6'5" third baseman, maybe 6'6", 18 years old, 230. I don't remember anyone looking like that when I was that age. And the guy
230 in that Poway poster back there?
What?
You're not 230 in that Poway poster back
there?
No,
I was about 140 and 6'1". I was I looked like a Q-tip running down the court. I was pretty bad. So and the other guy I ended up talking with your good friend Marty Caswell was about Brian Balzer, who's a really interesting pick. He's a guy that the Padres signed. And this is why when we start talking about what they could do, which is signing people, they signed him as an undrafted free agent out of a Japanese high school. His father was American, mother was Japanese. The parents split up. He went back to Japan for elementary school, middle school, and high school. Mainly was a first baseman catcher. Padres found him, signed for $10,000. He had Tommy John surgery. And now he's like I think Jim Callis mentioned him as one of the more underrated arms in the Padres system. He was throwing 94 to 96 off the mound. The thing that's really interesting is Yu Darvish has taken a big interest in him. And he's friends with Yu Darvish. And David and Clark, when they were at spring training, saw you talking, not only just talking to him, if you come up, blah, blah, blah. He was like working with him on his mechanics.
Hmm.
And you talk to Brian, and Brian says, yeah, I have his number. He gives me gear, gives me mental tips. And you're watching he just turned 20. Before he threw a bullpen, he was pantomiming his whole bullpen, how he would throw, and he has just tremendous mechanics. Of course, Marty was really fascinated in by being a Japanese American. So she's actually going to get up to Lake Elsinore, hopefully, to see him. But that's a guy who you should keep an eye on. That, and of course, Bateman at 6'8". Oh God, Bateman's at least 250. God, he was about 3 of me in high school or something like that. He is just gigantic.
Keep him away from Eric and your guys.
Oh well,
annual.
I think you put out a taco bar. I think Eric could give him a run for his money on the food. I'd put my money on Eric on that.
At least the 3 of you guys combined.
Yes, the 3 of us combined shouldn't be allowed in the elevator at one time.
This is always a blast, John, and good for me to kind of get schooled on some of these guys, and a nice refresher course for anybody that wants to get a lay of the land still in the early stages. Anything you would like to plug from the MadFriars crew?
We've kept prices the same even in this economy. $5 a month.
The tariffs aren't impacting you guys?
No, not yet. Not tariffs yet. And then we had a new writer, Clark Fernhold. Mark Wilkins, had a kid, and so he had to take some time off from us.
Oh, congratulations!
Mark. Yeah. Mark is a great dude. And so Clark's going to be out in San Antonio first, and I'll be in Fort Wayne in May. I'm not sure where David will be exactly. I think he's going to try to get out to Fort Wayne again this year. Then we'll go to El Paso, and so all the money just goes to handle our rental cars and hotels and airline flights.
What else? What else, John? What else do they go towards?
No, I got to pay for my own food. If I charge the food, the guys would kick my butt. And of course, the thing is, we are lucky enough. We get all 4 of the affiliates to advertise on our site because we provide local San Diego celebrities some swag, and they'll wear them around and talk about how much they like it. And you know what media guys are like with free stuff, man.
Oh my goodness, they go crazy over it.
It's ugly. Yeah, it's not
free food, free T-shirts. It's ridiculous.
And you guys all want to see pictures of all the food that I'm eating. We're already talking about coffee cake, and they got a full English breakfast we can get up in Lake Elsinore too at Annie's Cafe. So that would.
Well, when are you here? You're here in June, is it? July?
June or July. I'll be out there around there.
Yeah.
We'll go up.
Yeah, let's be in touch. That'd be a lot of fun. And
just make sure you don't eat for a couple days because you're going to have a lot of calories.
I don't know. We're chasing these twins around. I work up a pretty good appetite. The metabolism's still going pretty strong. It's slowed down a little bit, but it's still doing all right. Thank you, John, as always. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you very much for having me. And Don Alfonso says goodbye too. All right. He's ready for dinner. Bye-bye.
Bye, Don Alfonso.
Appreciate it.